Welcome to this week's episode of the Uber to the Pits podcast. I'm joined by another driver I get to call a friend and I've known for a long time. Some refer to him as the man with the cleanest pee in racing. Pat Long for that.
Thank you, Pat.
Craig Stanton. Craig, thanks for joining me on this week's episode of the Uber to the Pits podcast.
Yeah, I'm super stoked to be here. You know, when you asked me the other day, it's like, yes, let's do it right now. and no, anything that you need, want, I'm in. Yeah, I'll jump as high as you need. Thank you for having me on.
No, absolutely. So what I like to do is I like to get a little bit of background just for our listeners to understand how you got into racing, what, got that needle injected in your arm where now it's just become your livelihood.
Yeah, that's an interesting one. Grew up, he was a ski instructor. He was a auto shop teacher. So I learned early on how to do just about anything with a car. He was always couldn't leave anything stock. And so I grew up skiing and surfing and being super active. And I realized early on, I realized how to learn and how to learn something that's really technical like surfing or skiing. And then along the way, there was so many stories within the story, but I ended up, my first job was at a off-road race team. And I was racing motorcycles at the time. I mean, there's so many things that happened, but I just happened to meet the right people at the right time. I didn't really grow up thinking, I was going to be a race car driver. I grew up thinking that I was going to be involved with a lot of different types of experiences. And I knew that I wasn't going to be a corporate guy, right? But I knew that I could really surf ski really well. And then I met some people, started riding motorcycles, and then, raced for 8 years. I was involved with the off-road race team, worked as it's a long story. I was at Glendale College in the machine shop unit, machinist union program. I went out in an interview. I wasn't going to work at a dingy old, machine shop. Right across the street, when I did that interview, right across the street was the Modern Motors Off-Road Center, which, they had Class 8 trucks at the time, which is the Unlimited. That was a trophy truck at the time. They had two-seater Unlimited, single-seater Unlimited. Bobby Farrell, Ivan Stewart was racing there. Jimmy Connors. There's a multitude of people that were racing at the shop. I had my first real job is sweeping the floors, cleaning the bathrooms, emptying all the trash cans in the vehicles or the trailers or whatever. And so It was very much basic, grassroots. And I worked into a chase position and as a mechanic, and then I worked into a driving position. Actually, I drove a couple of races there. So
real quick,
from there,
just for people to understand, what exactly is a chase position in off-road? What?
So if you go from point to point in Mexico at the 500 or the 1,000, you're going to from Ensenada to Cabo, and it crosses past Highway 1, which goes north to south in Baja. And so as the vehicles go through the route or the race course, it needs fuel, needs tires, it needs servicing along the way. So I drive a vehicle that's weights and compressors and every spare known to man on the back of this truck, and we're flying down with another mechanic, meeting all these vehicles along the way. So I always made my stops. I never got lost. I was always good as a mechanic on all those many different vehicles, and never wrecked or whatever. So I got into a test position with them, and then a racing position. It was really cool. So yeah, it was really good. And then one thing led to another. I was still racing motorcycles, and then let's see, with cars, it was interesting. So had a long career in racing Southern California as a pro, and I learned a lot, actually. So when I moved to cars, I'd already learned about bringing my A++ to the, game, to
Yeah.
the event, how to pit, how to talk to sponsors, how to do a contract, how to be, how to go for a championship and wins. So it was really cool because when I went to cars, it was an easy transition. Yeah, 2 wheels, 4 wheels, it's on pavement, but all that, all that training from before, early on with my dad, and my, skiing with all his knucklehead friends, I learned how to learn. So I learned really fast, and I went through the amateur program and went right into pro. And it was never like, it was, I set a goal for myself as I want to see how good I can be, and then next thing you know, it's 20 years down the road, and now I'm making a living and doing a lot of coaching and doing a lot of development and for a lot of major manufacturers, and then, tire manufacturer testing. And it just kept on going. And people, from the motorcycles and onto the cars, it was really about fitness for me. I was bringing fitness to that arena, right? So coming from the motorcycles, I always would schedule in 3 24-hour mountain bike races every year as a goal to keep myself fit. I hung around a lot of athletes, so it was always easy for me to train. And so a 24-hour race was always like, it wasn't really, it was easy for me because of the 24-hour mountain bike races, right? So there's many interweaving stories within the story. And, within those stories that I tell you right now, there's 600 different stories that you and I can talk about for hours.
Oh, absolutely.
And we do.
And
When
that's
you and I
that's
get
one of the
together,
best things. Exactly. We always talk about, past experiences on the track together, or, past experiences of, hey, what are you doing fitness wise, or this or that?
Yeah.
And, you've kind of seen also over the last few years with me, kind of the different, peaks and valleys with me, with my fitness and stuff like that. And finally I'm to the point now where, I'm back onto that path to get back into the car and this and that. And, that's really kind of where, Pat Long came up with, there's a great podcast called Dinners with Racers hosted by Ryan Beckley and Sean Heckman. If you guys haven't,
those are two wacky characters right there.
Absolutely. You guys got to go listen to it. They had a question, they had this pass along question, which is one of my favorite, things that they do in each episode. And it came to Pat Long about, and I get this question all the time, and I'm sure you do too, is what happens when you're in an endurance race and you have to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
And the answer is we just go. We deal with it. And, we deal with it again when we get out of the car. And so the question to Pat is if one other racer that you'd sit in their pee, whose would it be? And the answer was, without like hesitation, Craig Stanton. He's just like the fittest guy, this, that, blah, 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 blah. That's why, that's who I'd choose. And Ryan's like, yeah, that's a great point. So
that's really funny. I just saw Ryan. I just saw Sean Heckman too. They're funny.
Yeah. So, really, how beneficial is it to have this fitness level? You'll see guys like in stock car, like, Tony Stewart or, Paul Tracy went towards the later end of his career. Guys that are bigger, maybe not necessarily look like they're, Lewis Hamilton, Jenson Button shape, but they'll still go do a 400 or 500 mile race.
Yeah.
But really, I feel with the way the horsepower, the downforce, and all the feelings of what a modern day car is now, that, especially with the added G forces, that fitness is actually that much more important now than it was, in the earlier years. Yeah,
for sure. I think it's a huge piece of the puzzle. And I think what it does too is it keeps you focused outside the car, because you've got to keep up that level of fitness. I think I was at an off week, I was training 100 hours a week with nutrition and food prep and executing, a training program throughout the week, if it was an off week. And it was just to keep me focused. I knew there's a huge benefit from being that fit because I never really got tired. I got hot at times, but I never really got tired. And when I overheated, I got, you know, a Porsche. Every car's hot, you know. You go to walk humidity and, you know, it's 90 degrees, 99 degrees or whatever, you know, and so it's super hot. But I wouldn't have to worry. I could have that confidence not to like trail off in terms of focus or clarity or balance or, you know, I could always know that I had that confidence that I wouldn't, you know, I wouldn't get into trouble and start making bad decisions after 3 hours. They'd always throw me in, you know, it's like, oh, we'll just move the car forward. You're a known quantity. We're going to put you in there and just bang off laps for, you know, 3 hours. You know, that was how I got a lot of work.
Yeah.
You know, I might not be as quick as some, you know, and I'm way quicker than most, but, you know, you get, a 22-year-old kid in there that just doesn't care, you know, he's going for it. There might be a few tenths or now for sure. Now I'm 62. There's a lot of people that are quicker, but.
No, exactly. I mean, but even at that age,
The point is that I always knew that I could be in there with that confidence. Yeah, I had that confidence and I wouldn't trail off, you know, in terms of performance, and I just bang off laps. I did a 6 hour just recently up with Tony Callis, and he's got a brand new guy that's learning how to drive. He's awesome, Daniel, and he's running a GT4. And so Thomas Merrill and I, you know, I did, I don't know, 2 hours and some odd, 2.5 hours. He did whatever it was, you know, and it was effortless just because, you know, I am that fit and it's easy, and I don't make bad decisions at the ends, you know. So
and unfortunately, that's kind of where some things actually kind of get, you know, happen now.
Yeah.
Especially since the sponsorship dollars aren't necessarily there like they were 12 years ago, 13 years ago.
Yeah.
That, you know, you could put somebody like you in the car or somebody else that has the experience, can put off consistent laps, not trail off, not do damage to the car.
Yeah.
But then a lot of times the teams are going to choose somebody that can bring the, you know, $50,000 to the plate for the weekend, but we'll have that incidence of writing off a $200,000 car.
Yeah. You know, if you watch NASCAR and stuff, there's a reason that, you know, a team, say Hendricks, will have a younger driver, or one of the other teams will have a younger driver and tear up equipment. And then there's no excuse that Carl Edwards comes back or Matt Kenseth comes back, who is just steady Eddie, that's been doing it for years, knows how to educate, motivate, lead by example, how to set up the car when it goes from, you know, super hot in the afternoon to, you know, dark conditions where it's going to get tight, how to adjust your car. Driver can go out there and the light went off. But what happens at the end, you know, at the end of the day, is they're tearing up equipment. They don't end, you know, they can't close that deal. Where somebody that, you know, that like Jimmy Johnson or somebody can, you know, they be there at the end, know how to save the equipment and just mature. And, you know, it takes hours and hours and laps and laps and years and championship after championship to dial some of those things in, you know, and be consistent.
No, exactly. I mean, that's even the way with, you know, the 24-hour Le Mans, 24-hour
Yeah.
is knowing how to get the most out of your car without tearing it up, having that tire management, having that fuel management, having the understanding of, look, you know what, it's not worth it for me to right now to race somebody in the first 5 hours of a 24-hour race.
Yeah.
And, you know, you see a lot of these young kids coming in or new teams that think as soon as the green flag drops, oh, I got to win this race right off the bat. And all of a sudden they're out within 2 hours, whether it's, you know, an engine issue, you know, a tire issue, a wreck, something.
Yeah. Oh, I know. It's incredible. I just watched the start of the race at Atlanta last week, and, you know, they had a crazy first lap. It's like, oh man, some of those, glad they have a contract, because some of those guys wouldn't get asked back after a opening lap like that.
Well, even the opening lap, but, you know, but then you also have the incident in pit lane with Montoya and Dixon.
Yeah.
with Dixon running into the back of Montoya, whether, it was a brake check by Montoya or Dixon just, wasn't paying attention. That one could have gone either way. And then again, the Tony Villander Ferrari issue that, happened. So here you have you have two Indy 500 winners.
I know. It's
playing bumper cars coming into pit lane.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah. When you go to other forms of racing and somebody comes in from sprint cars or off-road or NASCAR or something like that, the road racing tends to be a little bit more, I don't know how to say it, except that it's a little bit more, it's a little less aggressive at times. When you get somebody in there that comes from another arena, some of those other arenas are a little bit more aggressive, so it kind of stands out. Some of the steady eddies that we've been around for years and years and years, we're out there and it's an endurance environment. We're there for the long haul. We're there for, stint after stint after stint. Some of the sprint races now where people are coming in from, some pretty aggressive chances. I like aggressive racing, except that, when you start tearing stuff up, then, it's like with NASCAR, I'm not putting them down, but sometimes somebody wrecks. It's like, oh, it's bad luck. It's like, no, the guy behind him just loosened him up arrow wise. And, now he's loose into the fence. It's like, wait, that's not the art of it. I like hard racing, with a skill set that's like going, how do those guys do it?
That's what I love about MotoGP so much.
Yeah, me too.
Because, these guys will get after it, but they can't bump and run because they know as soon as they bump and run, their tires hit, they're down.
Yeah.
But being able to go, 250 kilometers an hour, going hard brake into, a right-hand corner and you're inches off of each other.
Yeah.
And then, to see who could get on the, brakes last or gas first.
Yeah.
Really makes great racing. And unfortunately, that's also been lost in Formula One now.
Yeah. That hard racing.
So, in fact, I actually really enjoyed the Formula One race this last weekend, watching Pierre Gasly get his first win.
Yeah, right. It's kind of switching it up a little bit. If you go to a F1 race, a third of the fans, maybe even more, are in red, right?
Yeah.
And I do a lot of work for Corsa Pilota factory, experience racing program, and I work for Ferrari. I have a couple clients in Ferrari Challenge, and so it's interesting to see that culture. And people are asking me, "Oh, what's going on with Ferrari?" And I think that they'll be back. I think that they're campaigning. They're campaigning for a rule change. I think that there's things on the horizon that, the Ferrari fans will really be, excited here in the next year or so. It goes in cycles, doesn't it?
It really does.
Yeah.
And, it's kind of funny because you have somebody so innovative like Mercedes coming out with the DAS, system for, their steering wheel that you can pull up to change the toe in and out of the car. And
right.
Then all of a sudden, because it's so innovative and nobody else has it, it's illegal.
Yeah. Crazy. That's why I look at like some of the trophy trucks, the off-road stuff, where, man, the imagination is the limit, right? And there's some really smart people on F1 right now where the imagination is, and they're racers and they're at the leading edge, and I like that with all the technology. It's like, wow, somebody's really smart.
No, exactly.
Thinking about that stuff, and to make it work.
Exactly. But then at the same time too, I almost feel like there's too much technology in Formula One, and there's too much, even with the more modern sports cars, it's almost like any Joe Blow could get in this car because there's so many driver's aids, and making it successfully around the racetrack. And when I say make it successfully around the racetrack, there'd be 2 or 3 cars on the track, and they're being able to push it to their limits, but maybe a little bit beyond. But because of the driver's aids, the traction control, the brake assist, the power steering, they're gonna, it's going to be a successful lap for them. They may not be the fastest or this or that, but they're not putting it in the wall.
Yes.
And I feel that, if you go back to the, the Clarks, the Mario Andretti's, the the early days of Senna, Lauda,
Foyt, Senna, yeah,
you
Schumacher,
know,
all that. Yeah, sure.
Schumacher's early years before the technology really started to advance,
Exactly.
where
Yeah.
you still had to use 3 pedals. You still had to, you
Yeah.
didn't have your clutch and everything at your fingertips. You didn't have, 20 different settings for brakes, 20 different settings for fuel. You know, being able to adjust all this stuff, I really think it takes away from, really what the driver can do.
Yeah. I agree. I think that, in the Yokohama Trophy Cup West series right now, we're debating in the 991.2s, we have the GT3, GT4 program, GT2 program, which those are really amazing cars, and they're all, factory cars, and we race them as delivered. With the GT3s, there's no ABS option, but we're looking at now is having those cars equipped with ABS. And it's always been that I'm kind of a purist. I'd rather have the third pedal. I'd sometimes, I do like the paddle shifting. It's really cool.
Yeah.
I do like the ABS. It's really cool. But in a braking zone, in a after the clutch, it's a whole nother element for me in the braking zone, because I can manipulate the same thing I did on my motorcycles. I can manipulate the braking zone and the balance of the car going through the braking zone on the downshifts.
Yeah.
So when it went to ABS, when it went to sequential boxes, it's like, with the paddle shifters, it's just a lot easier. The element of all those things, it's just easier. The element of maybe not power steering, maybe not ABS, maybe not, assist power, all those things, those assists now make it super easy. And it makes it more close racing, right? So now all of a sudden now, if you want to have, more close racing, if you can get the power, the BOP dialed in, and then all of a sudden now it's just hover, right?
Now, speaking of BOP, how do you feel about BOP in IMSA racing and SRO at the in the GT3 class, and some of the stuff in the GT4 class? It's like, as soon as one car, and it could be entirely the driver, is making the cars that much quicker, that they're fast and consistent. Oh, now we got to dial you back because other cars aren't winning.
It is super. I mean, BOP is if you think about there's a reason that NASCAR has almost all the cars alike, but they want to have, they want to have manufacturers, right?
Yeah.
So GM and Ford and Toyota, and they want to have those different manufacturers, but also too is there's so much alike, and the only thing that they're working on is the power output. So they're limiting the torque. I mean, they're managing all the different manufacturers. So the whole element is very, what you can do to it is very small. The window is very small to keep it in that box. So now all of a sudden you're working on, how to adjust your car and your pit stops and strategies and blah, blah, blah. The point is when you have a Mercedes and a Ferrari and a Porsche and a GM, it's really freaking hard. So one track, Daytona is going to be, a car that's a little bit more slippery. That's better, high speed. You have Mid-Ohio, you have more downforce, more torque. So throughout the year, it's just, you're trying to balance all that out, right?
Exactly.
Super hard. And then you've got, with the GTD program, you have a pro and an amateur. So now the pro is trying to tiptoe through that and not put one on the board. So changes, you put that one lap up there and you're in big trouble.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess
BOP is hard.
BOP is hard. And then the other thing that I'm not a big fan of is the driver rankings.
Oh, that's hard.
Super hard. Because of your age now, you're just automatically a bronze driver.
I am. Yeah.
But
I am. And
it's
it's almost preferred to be a bronze, right? So
exactly.
when I when I get asked to do 24 hours, I'm one of the faster bronzes on the planet, you know? And so, but it's hard for, you know, it's hard in one side of the coin. It's challenging, you know, it's easier. It's confusing. It's really
Yeah.
confusing.
But it's like, okay, wait, hold on. I'm a bronze driver. Craig's a bronze driver. He's, you know, has all this much more experience from me. So he's just hands down right off the bat, he's going to beat me in the car just based on experience, you know, if we went straight, you know, straight experience for experience. And it's like, okay, I think driver, you know, and then it really messes it up, especially like if you win, you know, if you're a successful bronze driver. And I think this happened with Paul Miller Motorsports a couple years ago with Madison Snow and Brian Sellers. You know, they had a great year. I think they won, you know, the GT. They like either won or were
GTD.
runner up for the GTD class in the Lamborghini. And all of a sudden, like, all right, Madison, now because of that, you're now a silver driver because of points. So now you guys can't race together. So, how do we go campaign now that this is happening? You know,
there's flaws in it. I think originally it was a good idea, and originally it was for something you have to campaign to raise or lower your status. And it's super confusing for people. It's basically, you know, originally it was the platinum was for the people that ran F1 or they won Le Mans, or, you know, they've won championships, you know, in a pretty elite series. And then the gold was basically for most of the pros. Silver and then bronze was some of the amateurs that actually were racing in, you know, like a pro-am program. And then the bronze were somebody that's just basically, they were just brand new into the sport.
No, and I think
now it's
now it's like as soon as you're outside of a bronze, you're not considered an amateur racer anymore. And it's like,
exactly.
No, I mean, I consider silver amateur driver because it's not necessarily their full-time job. It's, you know, something.
So now it's really different. It's confusing, and it's put people in and out of jobs. So some people benefit and a lot of people haven't. And what I tell everybody is just, you know, driving right now, racing in a professional series is about being a businessman. And the deal that you can put together, and then none of that matters. So, you know, as somebody that, you know, I'm guiding a couple young guys through that, you know, how do you bring, you know, how do you have a career? Well, now you don't really get paid. Very few jobs are because of the right foot about what you've done. It's really about being a businessman. These guys are, you know, coming up with, you know, $500,000 a year, and then taking 10% for their it's the money they make for the year, right? So now some of the pros from that. So
exactly.
Exactly. So that's how some of the guys are doing it these days. It's about business to business. It's about being a businessman. And a lot of people are still thinking that they're going to make a living off their championships or wins. It does help, but it's not everything. It's not, those days are kind of gone.
You know, unless if your last name's Taylor or, you know, Montoya or Castroneves or Dixon, where, you know, it is IndyCar champions, WEC championships, you know, Formula One, you know, anything along those lines, yes. Or, you know, IMSA championships, Daytona, you know, numerous Daytona 24-hour races. Those are really the few and far betweens that you'll be consistent job-wise and making that money. You know, I think Jordan Taylor does a great job branding himself and, you know, doing what he needs to do. Whether
he's awesome,
you know, with his, you know, side persona of Randy Sandstrom, or just, you know, being fun and having fun.
being a professional driver is way different, and it's going to be way different in the future, in the near future, because the world is changing so quick. We can talk about what's going on in the world, but really, how is racing going to be around? I mean, what's going to be new? How are we going to survive with motorsports in this new world? I mean, we can talk about what's occurring and what's shifting with the government, and we have lockdowns in the different countries. How's the international, when you go to do a Sebring or a Daytona, you have every walk of life from every community in every country coming to Daytona. And so how is that, we just going to have these championships, or, and then we have a main world final or something like we do in Ferrari Challenge. I have no idea how it's going to be, but what I spent a long career trying to figure out what the next 6 months is going to do. And I wanted to help create that next 6 months, or what's the next big thing? How are we going to race? What's the average driver going to do? How is he going to bring himself? Is it going to, what kind of business is he going to be able to do? I think there's going to be motorsports, but I think it's going to be different in the future. So it's almost up to us, somebody forward thinking, is creating that new way, and getting with the racing community and seeing what the future is going to bring. The manufacturers, if we watch, I always watch the man. Are they backing off? Are they moving forward? Are they downsizing? Are they just going to work in Germany? I mean, so I don't know what it's going to look like, but I do know that there's some smart people, and I do know that each generation's smarter. And the kids now that I'm coaching the kids, kids in their teens and early 20s, they're many generations younger than I am, and they're so quick and they're so equipped, and they get this stuff so quickly. And so that's the new generation, and they'll create the new world, but they'll create the new motorsports world for sure. And I always try to have those guys and gals enthused, keep them focused, keep them ready, keep them engaged, and they'll come up with and guide that generation.
Yeah. What would be your, what are you telling these, up and coming drivers now? Of course, some of them are going to have, money from mom and dad.
Mm-hmm.
Because, so for a team to come up automatically right now with money to pay for racing in a Boxster Cup car,
Mm-hmm.
whatever it is, it's not cheap.
Yeah.
So a lot of times it's mom and dad have either sacrificed a lot or have been very successful and allowing their kids to, live out their dreams of wanting to race cars and do this, which is great. Gotta love the parental support that way.
Yeah.
But for the kids to make the next step from not relying on mom and dad, but relying on their business savvy to be able to bring money to the table or market themselves to a team manager or a team owner to say, you know what, this driver looks like somebody that I want to put in the car. What is the advice you're giving them to get to that point and be successful there?
Yeah. So figure out a budget. Say, for instance, they had $100,000. They could go have 3 tests. They could go do 3 tests and spend their $100,000, and then they're done.
Yeah.
Or they can be involved in a GT4 program, or they can be involved in a Miata program, or they can, and a karting program. So they're doing a lot of volume. I think that the more laps you do, the more hours you put in, the more you engage, the more times you're at the track, you're learning. I feel that, sim work is really good as well. It's not the end all, but it keeps you engaged. It keeps you thinking about the next race.
Yeah.
The next event or the next test or whatever. And you can kind of fine tune some of those moments, like getting in the zone. Your brain needs to adapt to getting into that moment where time and space is different.
Yeah.
getting into that concentration and sitting there for 30 minutes and then move it to 35 minutes and then move it to 40 minutes. The sim work is really, just off a side note here, I was just having a conversation with a friend of mine today. He's asking me about sim work, and I said, it's great. A lot of these guys and gals, they aren't putting a consequence on it. So they'll go around, they'll blast around for a lap or two and they have a wreck. It's like, there's somewhere when I was doing a lot of sim work, I'd do 30 push-ups, or I'd do a hard route on a climbing wall, in my backyard.
Yeah.
I would do something to be able to say, oh, this isn't just a game. Because I remember, on a side note with sim, I remember coming out of the Glen, and as I rolled in, the carousel in the AI of a sim program, if I got up on the quarter panel of the car underneath it, that person, that car in the game would fall away and then continue on. Well, in reality, that gap where I put myself in harm's way in that person's blind spot, that gap is closing in 3 seconds. And sure enough, I spun somebody out. I thought, that's the game. So you're programming your subconscious. So it's really important to have really precise inputs in your brain, because it is etching those neural pathways. Anyway, point is that for a young driver is doing a lot of volume, being fit, going to school, doing something that will allow you to learn how to be a business person, as well as many hours and many laps. So you just don't spend that $100,000 not wisely, right? So you just you use that $100,000 or that $50,000 or that $20,000. I don't care if it's $15,000. You can buy a suit, an outfit, a helmet, and go run a rental program, rental cart program, a ride and drive program.
No, exactly. And then my other thing too is, just because you may have the money to go afford a GT3 or a GT4 Club Sport, or any other manufacturer in the GT4, GT3 class.
Yeah.
I always like to tell them, start small. Start in the spec Boxer. Start in the spec Miata. Go Formula Ford racing. Give yourself something where the machinery is as close to each other as possible, because that'll help evaluate yourself as a driver. It'll also help evaluate yourself in different situations where it's easier to fix the car. And if you get bumped in a spec Miata, you're spending $5,000, or you get bumped in a GT4 Porsche, you're spending $50,000.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that if you go out and get your NASA license, your SCCA license, I saw you at POC last weekend. If you get a POC license, and then you're always at the ready. When you're at the track, you meet people, and like tracks, right? So all of a sudden there's endurance environments where somebody's going to go, I would love that person to drive with me in the 3-hour at NASA at Buttonwillow or at Mid-Ohio or whatever. And now all of a sudden, now you're partnering. Now, magic happens at the track.
Yeah.
If you're not at the track, things do not happen. And there's a reason that when Tony Stewart used to run 80 races, or some of the guys that would, Mark Martin, he'd run 120 races a year. He'd do late model programs. He'd be Cup. Yeah. He'd be in Busch at the time. He ran all sorts of stuff, because magic happens at the track. One thing leads to another. Next thing you know, you're driving for somebody, or you've got a 40 race late model program in Charlotte,
Yeah.
So,
Tony would go run Indy, grab a helicopter, and go fly to Daytona for the 400.
Yeah. Coca-Cola 600 or something, whatever it was. Yeah. It's incredible. I think that, it wasn't the 600, but I think that being ready to be ready is super important. Yeah,
absolutely. And I can't tell you how many times drivers have said, I didn't have a ride. I just showed up at the track with my helmet and I got thrown in the car.
Yeah. It's when you're humble, you're humble, you're proud, you're easy on equipment, you're, there's all those qualities that other people, there's always an opportunity. Always. Yeah. There's always, and and then, you know, setting yourself up for success. You know, how do you talk to people? I mean, some basic stuff. It's really super important to make yourself marketable.
No, exactly.
Yeah. Being
Now,
authentic. I'm learning about being authentic.
there you go. Now, you've been around the sport for a long time. Is there any race that is still on your bucket list?
No, but I would love to just focus in right now on, you know, coaching, and then aiming more towards the trophy trucks.
Go back to off-road racing?
Yeah, it's so funny. It's like, I am always intrigued by, you know, some really fast off-road vehicles. You know, I'm hooked up with the Can-Am side-by-side team. I've got a couple friends of mine that are involved with trophy truck teams, and, you know, I would love to put a deal together and we get really, really good in a trophy truck. It always intrigues me with all that power and speed. And when I get in those things, I'm just absolutely amazed. And, you know, if you look at like some of the guys that are running and gals that are running really fast right now, it's like, wow, that is a skill set for sure.
No, absolutely. And I forget which video I was watching, but there's somebody doing some testing, and they're running like over motorcycle whoops at 90 to 110 miles per hour. And you just see the tires going like this, but the body's not moving at all. It's just like, wow, that suspension.
They'll run out. Some of the trophy trucks now will outrun the helicopters on a fast sandwich, you know, on a dry lake bed or something.
Yeah, that's crazy.
They're good stuff. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I know your nephew's, you know, been doing the Can-Am stuff. So, you know, he seems to really be enjoying it. In fact, you know, my neighbor growing up used to run a desert buggy in the Baja.
Yeah.
And you know, we always talked about, oh, you could come be my co-driver as soon as you turn 15. So I think that was the age requirement to do that. Of course, the year before I turned 15, he sells everything. He's like, yeah, I'm done. It's like, oh,
damn.
So, but yeah, I mean, I'd love to do like, you know, Vegas to Reno, or, you know,
they just happened.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I talked to Jason Hart, and he's just like, you know, and some other drivers just, you know, I'd love to even get in a quarter midget and just figure out the car handling going around, you know, a dirt track, and you know, getting that thing sideways, or you know,
like a midget sprint car. You know, you can go up to a Ventura and run a Corey Cruiseman's program, and that's like so much fun. And he's really good. He's really polished at getting people up to speed, and learning how a sprint car, a midget, has side bite. You know, as you get up against a cushion, as you get back to throttle, it'll accelerate when the thing's sideways. And where most road race cars, you get them sideways and just scrub too much speed off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So, you know, it's like
good stuff.
Plus, not only that, I think I learned so much more about car handling, you know, when you're getting it loose on dirt or stuff like that.
Yeah.
Because, you know, I did the motorcycle thing as well, and we had trained in the dirt before we'd go put it on the, you know, asphalt.
Yeah.
And just what you learn in that little bit of dirt training made such a huge difference once you got onto the pavement.
Yep. Yeah. We've been taking a lot of my clients, road racing clients, and taking them out to the desert. We have a whether it's Cal City and we have over Lucerne, we have 11-mile route and a 44-mile route. And the road racers are really good in the desert because we're a lot more precise, right? So we're looking at apexes, you know, we're looking at getting next to the curb, we're unwinding the wheel right out to the edge of the track, where a lot of the off-road guys just bomb down to a set of whoops. Some of my clients are really good in the desert, and they're more precise, you know, and they really, you know, take to it very quickly.
Yeah.
So it's fun because we're hooked up with Mitch Alsop and his crew with Drew in there and all their other guys, and they're building their own chassis now, and they're super fast, super easy to drive, and so we've been doing that a lot. It's been hot as the sun out there right now, so we're waiting for it to cool down just a little bit, and we've got I think we've got 10 days coming up to where we're taking people out. We're just exposing them to the desert. Yeah. Can't
Now,
wait.
speaking of it being hot, yes, it's been extremely hot here in Southern California. You know,
Mm.
Saturday when I saw you at Auto Club Speedway,
Yeah.
you know, it was 110, 112, 13 by 11 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
It's really important, you know, just because a lot of people don't think, oh, they just think it's that temperature, but they don't think about, you know, the temperature inside the cars, the temperature inside your race suit, your helmet.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
there's very limited AC or, you know, flowing air around the
Hmm.
body to help
Yeah.
keep cool. And again, that's where your training comes in, you know, your
It
physical
does.
training comes in, the importance of staying hydrated and knowing, you know, intake levels of water and, you know, electrolytes to balance that out as well. Um, how,
Yeah.
how, how were your students and people you're working with this Saturday deal with that in the heat? Because we haven't had it this hot in a long time.
Yeah. I think they did pretty well. You know, it's with the Porsches. Some of those Porsches are turbo, charged, and some of those other cars are PDK. So you're always managing heat. So with it that hot, um, track temperatures were 147, almost to 150, super hot. So you're just getting this hot air off the pavement. So there's not a lot of cooling. So I had most of my clients actually driving off the oil temperature.
Okay.
So it was something that you don't want to burn the car down, and in turn you don't want to burn yourself down. So those races typically are 30 minutes, and they shorten them up a little bit.
Yeah.
So it was a outlap, green flag, and I think there was somewhere around 10 laps, 15,
Okay.
10 to 12. Well, everybody's got cool suits. They've got great equipment and stuff. And most everybody has blowers in the car. Um, so it wasn't too bad. And then I work on regenerating, so in the motorhomes, not standing around trying to get some cool water in you. One of the best ways, it's easy way that everybody can trick themselves into replacing their electrolytes is simple. Watermelon, cantaloupe.
Yeah.
uh, we get to eat some of our liquids. It goes into our system better than actually drinking. We drink water, sometimes it flushes out those electrolytes. So eating your blueberries, strawberries, and it gives us nutrition. It wakes up our brain, and it also gives us electrolytes, and it gets into our system quicker. It's almost like an IV.
Yeah.
Uh-oh, we locked.
Yeah, I'm
You
here.
good?
Yep, I'm
Okay.
all good. So, well, Craig, I know that we have a busy schedule. I think your battery's even getting lower and lower. So,
Yeah.
um, you know, I really appreciate you taking the time to join me. It's always a pleasure to see you at the track, off the track, anywhere.
Likewise with
We
you.
get to run into each other. So, you know, I always like to give people the last few minutes to just kind of go through, and, you know, you're up on the podium. We always got to thank, you know, the people that helped us make it and be where we are able to be. So, you know, if you have anybody you need to thank or do this or do that, this is your time.
There are so many people to thank. I thank you for, our time on this podcast. I'm grateful for you. I'm grateful for you getting the message out, inspiring, young drivers, inspiring somebody that's trying to work their craft out, inspiring, somebody to get into sport, whatever. I'm grateful for you on these platforms. There's so many people. My mom and dad were somebody who taught me how to surf and ski early on. I always have to, I always have to give a shout out to them. They are the ultimate, taskmasters, and they taught me how to learn early on. My brother was my crew chief for in the amateur car stuff for about 8-9 years. We won 9 championships and many races, and he's a crafty dude. He is a pyrotechnician in the studios and does a bunch of studio work. And if you need to if you need to figure something out and nobody else knows how to do it, he can usually figure it out. There's people like Mark Webber. There's the Mesrandinos, Tom and Paul. Those guys were one of my sponsors early on. Mike is the manager up at Button Willow. There's a whole family there of people. There's the Boots. it goes on and on. You know, there's Dennis Saucy, Harry Haggard, the Synergy guys and gals. It's the Von Marco Lowells. It goes on and on and on. I don't. There's too many people to message to talk about. It's the whole. You know, it's the whole circus. It's the whole family, and we travel as a pack from year to year. I have to thank the whole motorsport, you know, culture and the community, because they have supported me, guided me, found me a place to live and operate. I'm a wacky kind of guy, and I'm able to navigate and operate in this crazy motorsport world. I've learned so much, and it was always an experiment, a science project for myself. It's like, how good can I be? And so all these people allow me to, like, I want to see how good you can take this science project for yourself.
Yeah.
And yeah, super grateful. And then I realized, oh yeah, I was gifted with a gift. You know, I worked super hard. You know, I worked super hard, but also I have a gift, and I don't know where that gift comes from. I don't know how it all works out. I don't know how completely, you know, we want to talk about life, love, God, spirit, whatever. There was a gift there, and I love to pass it on to whoever will listen.
So that's beautiful.
Life
man.
is good.
Absolutely. So Craig, thanks a lot for joining us, and we'll see you guys next time on Uber to the Pits.
I'm grateful for you.
All right,
Peace.
thanks.